Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Futurum Tech Webcast. As part of our interview series and as part of our Women in Technology interview series, I am so excited today to introduce you to my guest, Lisa Joy Rosner. She is the Senior Vice President of Brand and Digital for Oracle, and her team is responsible for all things around the verbal and the visual identity of the company and really infusing the voice of the customer across all of the Oracle channels and Oracle as a company. And that's very much what I do on a day-to-day basis too, Lisa Joy. So it's great to know that we spend our days in similar manners. A little more background, Lisa Joy is a Silicon Valley veteran. She's worked in data and analytics her entire career across business intelligence, e-commerce, social analytics, MarTech, security, you name it, she's done it. And so here's the thing, Lisa Joy, you joined Oracle in the middle of a pandemic. Way to go.
Can you believe that?
I think that's awesome. Well, that had to be exciting, right? I mean, everybody else is hunkering down. You're starting a new job. All right, there you go.
It's really been amazing to start this job and meet so many new people and mobilize and motivate a team that I've actually never met in person.
Right.
It's very unusual, but so far so good. You just learn new tricks and new ways to connect with people.
Yeah, it's funny. My team and I are in a very different position as it relates to pandemic times. I've owned a marketing consulting agency for 24 years, and for 20 of those years, I've led our teams virtually. And at Futurum Research, all of our team is virtual. All of our team of analysts are virtual. They're all over the country. And so we've been collaborating and communicating and getting things done for decades virtually. So this has been, this shift for us. We're just like, oh yeah, well, we're kind of good at this. We know what we're doing.
Well, right before I started, I was working for an IoT company based in Israel. And so I was used to being, communicating through alternate channels.
Yeah.
But this was new to the Oracle team. I mean, people are very used to packing into a conference room. And the thing that I have to say I really miss are the serendipitous moments where you're walking down the hall and you have this spontaneous conversation, or you have to solve a problem. You just grab 5 people and take care of it.
Right.
We don't have that right now, but we just have to find ways to create that spontaneity in other ways.
The other thing that I miss that I never would have thought that I miss is actually looking good. And I mean, like, not that I don't look fine in my, Lululemon top. My husband said the other day, you know what, honey, it's really interesting. Like, all of my clothes come from Costco and all of yours come from Lululemon. I think that's just really interesting. And I personally, I said that's as it should be. So I don't really know what the problem is. But anyway, when you go somewhere and you see somebody these days, like if I'm running out to grab a coffee or something like that, and I see somebody dressed in business clothes, it's like, oh my God, you look so great. I miss that, or going to events and being able to just sort of look like business people from time to time. But that's the way it is. We'll be fine. We'll get through this.
Absolutely. I found that it's been very sort of just humanizing and democratizing. I was in a meeting actually with a man who was watching his kids for the day. Okay. And it was actually someone external, a very, very senior executive. And it was a very important meeting. And all of a sudden, in the middle of the meeting, from the right and from the left came 2 lightsabers. This kid was just crashing him on his head, and he looked mortified. And I went into the chat and I texted and I said, "That's awesome.
Right.
You're doing great. Don't worry."
Well, I know that you have a little bit of a non-traditional work relationship, and we'll touch on that in a minute. But I will say that I very much agree. And I think I'm someone, I have 2 crops of children, as I've shared with you. And my older daughters literally grew up on the floor of my office. Their needs took last place when it came to the needs of the clients. And I was a single mom for 16 years. So, work was really important, and, keeping a roof over their head was really important. And so my girls were always sort of at the bottom of the list of things I needed to take care of, which sounds terrible, but that in many ways is a working mother's reality. And my daughters are my second crop of children. I have 14-year-old twin daughters. And I have no problem now saying, "Lisa Joy, you want to have a meeting with me? You know what? I've got to do it before 2:30 Central Time because I have to pick up my kids from school, or my kids have a volleyball game that I'm not going to miss. And I just like, I find myself, and I've been this way not just in pandemic times, but I'm much more honest with people about, here are my priorities. And today, my kid has a volleyball game that I'm not going to miss. And we can have our business conversation at all these other times, but we can't do it now. But what I'm seeing in my neighborhood that I really love is, you go for a 30-minute walk with your dog for a sanity break. And I'm seeing so many dads walking kids in strollers or with kids on bikes, and they may be on a call while they're doing it. But I really am seeing so many more men, so much more involved in their children's lives. I too am having conference calls and video conferences where, I hear a baby crying and I'll say, and do I hear a baby? And one of the dads will speak up and say, yeah, that's mine. And so I really think that, like, we've been hiding our humanness, especially women have been hiding our humanness and our responsibilities as parents for a long time. So I think it's really cool to see this changing. And so talk a little bit, like I said, I know you have a little bit more of a non-traditional relationship in that. Well, I'll let you tell your story.
Okay, so first of all, so I have one crop, and they came very quickly. I gave birth 4 times over a 4-year and 3-month period, and during that period, I launched 2 different really cool high-tech companies. So my kids are all the same age, so they were all in diapers together, and now they're all going through puberty together. And we have, behind me are 4 different classrooms learning simultaneously virtually. But I was listening to your story, and it's interesting. The thing that has kept me going is multitasking. And there have been times where I have been literally on a phone interview with the Wall Street Journal, and I'm frosting cupcakes that as soon as the interview ends, I'm going to go deliver to school and then come right back and do a board meeting.
Right.
And during that board meeting, I'm sewing a Halloween costume.
Right.
With Zoom, I can't do that anymore.
But I think that that's also, to me, when somebody has asked about my personal secret to success, is my answer is chaos. I am so wired to operate in the middle of chaos. And it is icing those cupcakes and, and talking with a reporter or doing all those things. I mean, that's just the reality of my world. And it's, I am a very good juggler, and I can juggle work and I can juggle kids, and I'm not perfect and I drop balls all the time. But I think it is, to me, that's always been, and I think that I very much believe that you're wired how you're wired, and I'm so grateful that I do well with chaos. And I actually have some earplugs nearby. That my office is at one end of the house, and it's really a big office, but my living room is right next door, and I don't have a door on my office. So sometimes the girls will be home after school or whatever, and they'll turn on Gilmore Girls. And, so I'm sitting here with like wax earplugs in my ears because I write a lot and I really need quiet when I write. So, but, it's just kind of finding those tricks and the things that you can do that make it all work. But I very much have lived that same life. And I think it's actually kind of fun in a sick way.
Yeah, kind of. I agree. So I have a couple of philosophies. One of them, I call it amortizing your balance. So you can't actually do everything perfectly all the time. But if you can, stay above water at work, make sure that you're at all the really important school-related things, or sports-related things, or whatever activity, and occasionally get that yoga class in. I don't amortize my balance by week. Sometimes it's by month or by quarter, but it really is about it's about sort of adjusting and figuring out how to prioritize ferociously. And I think that ferocious prioritization on the home front has also really taught me how to do that on the work front, because especially you talked about the role that I have 9 different VPs that report to me, and they're all working on absolutely mission critical projects. Mm-hmm. And I have to ferociously prioritize the way I give them attention, the way I help them prioritize, pardon me. And it's the same thing at home, balancing the 4 different kids. And there are times where if I have to meet with Larry Ellison, I meet with Larry Ellison. There are times if the kid has to go to the doctor, that comes first. So it's all about really figuring out how to amortize your balance and get it in a long haul, and how to ferociously prioritize.
I think back to when my twins were babies, and my husband travels 90% of the time, and he traveled 90% of the time before we married, and he traveled 90% of the time when we had twins, and only now does he not quite travel so much. But I was very used to functioning as a single parent. And I remember when my girls were babies, and when you have twins, and your situation is not too dissimilar, and my older girls are only 19 months apart, which is close to having twins. But I remember when one, when one is screaming, that's the one you have to take care of. And then if the other one starts screaming, you have to deal with the most urgent problem of the moment at that moment.
True.
And if everybody else is screaming, that's okay. Mm-hmm. You'll get to them, and you just kind of have to take a deep breath and do that. So we was really going to talk a lot more about technology in this conversation, but I think we're going to throw that out the window. What I'd like to stay focused on is just really, for the women in the audience who are listening, I want to talk about what you're seeing these sort of pandemic times are impacting women, and how I've seen lots of data on the fact that, this is really impacting women in the workforce. And I'm in a situation, and I feel like maybe you are too. My kids are teenagers. My kids are in freshmen in high school. Working from home, learning from home is nothing for me. My kids are self-directed. I don't have to pay any attention. All I have to do is referee if they start screaming at each other occasionally. But for women with young children, this is a very, very big thing that happens that's disrupting the lives of a lot of women. What are you seeing within your network, within even Oracle? What are you seeing an impact on women in the workplace as it relates to the pandemic?
Well, so first of all, let's talk about the numbers. Women are 3x more likely right now to have their careers shifted and stunted and changed as a result of the pandemic than men. And then we have to parse it by essential workers versus non-essential workers. Essential workers are really, really struggling. The thing about women in tech is that we have a little bit more flexibility.
We do.
Right? We can work around certain hours. I think that in the type of jobs that we have, my one advice to everyone is don't ever apologize. Be who you are.
Right.
Just like that man who had the kids with the lightsabers popping in his face. He kind of had to make a choice. Do I show up to this important meeting, or do I take care of my kids? Well, you know what? I'm going to do a hybrid and just hope that the people on the other end of the meeting have empathy. And I think that is the most important word right now, empathy and compassion. We have to have empathy for ourselves. We have to have empathy for our teams. We have to have empathy for our customers and our partners and our colleagues across the board. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't be focused. That doesn't mean we shouldn't deliver. We have to. Right. But we have to be transparent about what our limitations are, and solve problems really creatively.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think that, even going back to your comment about democratization across the board, I really think that we are seeing, this is a much needed transition in the workplace that I don't think really anybody ever expected. But, when husbands and wives are both working from home, and you factor in kids learning from home and all the things that we're all juggling, it's like our humanity is kind of rising to the surface. And we are seeing things that many of us kept hidden, men and women.
Absolutely. Right? And I think as leaders, one of the things that you really have to do is understand where your team is. So I have people on my team who have babies, and I find out what their schedule is so that I never book a meeting or
Right.
during the times that I know they have to be with their kids. And it really is about paying attention to those details and understanding where people are, and when to include them and when you just make a decision without them and then inform them afterwards. And I think communication is really, really critical. One of the things that I've seen change right now is our dependence on technologies. Like, we use Slack.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I think I hear myself saying, I'm going to Slack you a Zoom
Right.
5 or 6 or 7 times a day. And,
Right.
and I mean, it's funny, but we need to use technology to help us communicate and help us disseminate information, and even little things like Amazon has been my incredible partner right now, the retail side, where sometimes I see people getting down and I'll just send them a little something to cheer them up, and it can get there in a day. But I think that it's really important to understand where people are and to listen.
Yeah.
And listening applies to both your employees and to your customers, to understand where they are, what they need, what they're struggling with, how they're challenged, so that you can address that and help them keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that what I have done with our company, and again, we've been, working virtual for a really long time, and this is not something that we've done in recent times, but I think it's a great example. When I have a team of like 6 women who work for me in our marketing consulting agency, and all of these women had children at some age or another. And a lot of times in my world, when my girls were littler, I would kind of need to check out from about 3 o'clock in the afternoon until maybe 6 or 7 o'clock, depending on sports or whatever. But the minute I could put them to bed, I picked up my laptop and I was working. A lot of times I was working, sitting in my bed while my kids were, I was waiting for them to go to sleep. Again, it was just me. My husband was gone, and I'd work until, midnight or something like that. Not necessarily proud of it, but what I did was I shifted my workday to accommodate the realities of my life. And our whole team each woman had something, maybe not the exact same circumstances, but for us, it wasn't unusual to get a message from somebody at 9:30 at night, or to have somebody ask a question at 11 o'clock at night. And, one of the things that I build into, the way that I manage teams is I make sure that if I'm messaging somebody, if I'm emailing somebody on a Sunday or whatever, I'm like, do not read this until Monday. Or
right. That's what I was thinking, because I'm a night owl.
Yeah.
So the kids go down and I can work until 1 o'clock in the morning, but that's also, those are my biorhythms.
Right.
But I think it's really important to lead by example. And I lead by example with my, my drive and my passion and my energy and my commitment. But it can also backfire. I actually had someone say to me, when people see you sending emails at 1 o'clock in the morning, they think, lead by example, that you expect that of them. Right. That's a really big insight. And I realized, I better stop doing that. And so I moved some things around in my schedule so that I deal with some of my personal emails at 1 o'clock in the morning, right. and stop doing things too extreme, because I don't want to burn people out. And people are working much, much longer days than they would normally, because our to some extent, our commute time is now meeting time, and our lunch time is now meeting time. That is what's happening to people.
Yeah, it's very challenging. And one of the things that we do here on a regular basis is, we might have a Monday morning project meeting call, and we might spend the whole hour just talking about what's going on in our communities, or, weird things that are happening, or are you turning into a prepper? Do you have a go bag? Or silly conversations like that. And sometimes at the end of an hour, we haven't talked about any status, and it's okay, because people will say, you know what, that was kind of the brain break that I needed. So I think that really understanding, keeping your finger on the pulse of what your people are feeling, and the stresses and the challenges, and like you said, a little gift here and there, or, I discovered farm girl flowers this year. And so out of the blue, I'll send somebody some flowers, and it's just like, oh my gosh, this just changed everything about my day. And so as leaders and as managers, I think that really understanding how deeply all of us and our teams are impacted by uncertain times, I think can go a long way.
So may I tell you some of the funny gift stories?
Oh, yeah.
So I'm here at Oracle to lead just a complete changing of the complexion of our brand. Right? Oracle's been around for 43 years. When I say Oracle, people say a lot of different things. When I say Oracle, what pops into your head? I'll put you
Larry Ellison.
Right? People think Larry Ellison.
Right.
They think databases. They think been around forever.
Right.
But Oracle is in the middle of completely reinventing itself. And when I first started, one of the first thing I worked on was a launch of this incredible technology. It has a very unsexy name. It's called, you ready? Ready? Dedicated Regions Cloud at Customer.
Oh my God, that's sexy.
And we market to people who are very, very literal. And this is a really incredible technology. We worked really, really hard on the launch. I was brand new. I was kind of behind the scenes and checking it all out. And so day of the launch comes, Larry Ellison delivers this speech. And the most persnickety, most well-respected, most difficult to win over Gartner analyst writes an article and calls Oracle, it's another, are you ready? A sparkly pink unicorn.
Wow.
My life. So one thing interesting about me and my relationship with Oracle is that I'm a boomerang. I started my high-tech career at Oracle in 1992. And so I feel in some ways like I never left. And I know the company really well. And Oracle is many, many things, but words like sparkly and pink and unicorn don't really come to mind.
Do not.
So she wrote this article, and I went to the social media team and I said, make me a sparkly pink unicorn. And they looked at me like I had 7 heads. I was like, make me a sparkly pink unicorn. They're like, we don't do that at Oracle. I said, well, we do now. And they said, wait a minute, we need written permission that it's okay to do this because we are normally so serious.
Right.
I said, we have to have fun with this. This is amazing.
Right.
So they made me this really cool, elegant, like not cheesy, this unicorn built out of data. And we put it out on social media with a headline, "The Cloud You've Always Dreamed of," and a link to Lydia Leong's article. And I held my breath for a second. And Lydia Leong from Gartner took the sparkly pink unicorn and put it on all her social channels and said, look what Oracle made for me, and copied all the Gartner analysts. And the thing went viral. And there were a couple people that had to trust me and take this leap of faith by doing something that we'd never do before.
Right.
And I went on and I found these, not like a little stuffy and not this really cheesy, I found this beautiful sparkly pink unicorn figurine. Uh-huh. It was really, really cute. And I sent it to all the people who were part of it. And they were beside themselves. They're like, look what I got. And it was this watershed moment because I'm here to challenge people and get them to think differently. Right. And find new ways of communicating. And like you said at the beginning, infuse the voice of the customer into all of our storytelling.
Yeah, I think that's awesome.
The other one is we're here to also demonstrate that Oracle's cloud technology is the most advanced and unparalleled. And I was in a meeting and I said, guys, we have got to put our cloud glasses on.
Are you going to put them on for us?
I am. And then 2 days later in the mail, this is so funny, someone sent these to me.
I love them.
My cloud glasses. And so now when someone does something really different or really exceptional or has a really big win, they get the cloud sunglasses. And it's little things like this. They're so little and they're, maybe a little quirky, but in times like these, those little gestures make such a big difference. And when I do them and decide to do them, they're kind of spontaneous. And I just go with it. And we're just challenging the status quo right now across the board. I mean, to be leading this kind of effort in the middle of a global pandemic, and I'm here in the Bay Area where we were also on fire for 2 months, right, is extraordinary. And let's go back to that word of having compassion and having empathy. It's just important now more than it's ever been.
Well, and I think to remember that it sometimes is those little touches that bouquet of flowers, that shiny pink unicorn, that special thank you, that handwritten note. And quite honestly, and not intending at all to malign my male counterparts and my colleagues, but when generally speaking, it is the women on the team who are thinking along those lines, that it sometimes just takes one little piece of something. And bonus checks are great, but these kind of things are different, and they impact people in a way beyond just getting a check. So
well, and on that, one of the things about being on these different, on something like Zoom, or actually, I'm not familiar with the technology we're on here, but there's the chat box. And so there are times we're in meetings where I will go to, a male counterpart and say, hey, can you please say thank you right now to this person? We really need to hear it. And then I kind of notice them sort of out of the corner of their eye reading the chat. I'm like, oh, good, he's reading it. And then he'll say it. And then I'll get a text, oh my God, blah, 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 just said thank you to me. And it's just
those little things. It's those, what I do the same thing in chats sometimes with, I lead a team of largely comprised of male tech analysts, and we'll be on a conference with a client and I'll hear, I this, and I think this, and I this, and I this, and I this. And I'm the one messaging in chat like, hey, you know what? Could you try to remember that this is a we? This is, this is our team has all worked on this. And, and then I just forgot, so I'm constantly doing those little messages too. And sometimes it just makes or the other thing that I'm doing is, I'll send messages to people on our team. A lot of time, everybody wants what they want done right now. Well, you know what? So-and-so's father just died, or so-and-so just got a positive COVID-19 diagnosis, or somebody's kid just had to go into rehab. And so I find that I tend to be the conduit by which this kind of information gets very strategically shared, so that people will step back and say, you know what, it is really important that I get this done, but it can wait, because what you've got going on right now is really more important. So
you just said something that made me think of something that we just did very recently at Oracle. We have an extremely rich, robust, and diverse portfolio of products, one of which is, course, has an acronym. It's HCM, which is Human Capital Management, or HR solutions. And one of the things that we've been doing for several years now is doing a study of mental health in the workplace. Because we're marketing to human resource leaders, and we want to bring them insights that will help them in their jobs. And we just released this report. It's called AI at Work. And I'm going to share with you I don't even know what to say about this insight, but the biggest insight was that right now, people would rather talk to a robot than talk to their boss about their mental health issues, or their suffering, their emotional suffering during the pandemic. And there was a lot of other really, really interesting insight, but that one just blew me away. And I mean, it just tells me that we as leaders have to do a better job.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. I want to be mindful of the fact that you told me that you needed to dash off to something at the top of the hour. And we are at the top of the hour. Lisa Joy, this has been such a great conversation. And what we're going to have to do is we'll book another session of this interview series, and we'll talk about all things Oracle Cloud, so that we can talk a little bit about some of the interesting things that you all have going on. And you can show up with your cloud glasses. You can send me a pair of cloud glasses. We can wear them during the broadcast. It'll be great. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. This has been a great conversation, and I look forward to following it up with yet another one.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward. I have some amazing customer stories that I would love to share with you. So I look forward to doing that next time. And it just means so much to me that you included me in this session today. It was really fun, and I learned a lot.